Vaughan Coveny, welcome along to Strive 365.
Evening, Gareth. Great to be here.
Hey, you are what we class as a triple threat, a former high performance athlete, a coach who is still working in this pre-performance space, and a dad of a son, Luka, who's going through this journey himself. So, yeah, very well placed to speak to all of our audiences today. And as a fellow Kiwi and as a fellow former striker, I'm a bit of a fanboy moment for me because, you were New Zealand's record all-time goal scorer, recently surpassed by Chris Wood, but is somebody I looked up to a lot, kicking the ball around the back garden, trying to be Vaughan Coveny, scoring goals for my country. So it's a great pleasure to have you on. We cross paths occasionally here in Melbourne. I was fortunate to work with Luka back when I was in the Victory Academy a couple of years ago, and it's good to see he's sort of kicked on and to represent both Australia and New Zealand. So he's changed the green and gold for the black and white. That must be a pretty proud moment for you. How did that conversation go down in the household?
Yeah, no, it was really exciting at the time. Obviously, playing for Australia, but then the opportunity came when he was an emergency in one of the next camps, and New Zealand offered him to go to a camp, and he's never looked back. Loved it there. Loved the culture. Yeah, and it's just been playing there ever since.
Under 20s World Cup on the horizon next year, I believe.
Yeah, hopefully, if selected. Yeah, they just recently qualified, so that's a great achievement, and hopefully, he can stay fit and be selected for May or June next year.
Mm. Hey, for the people back maybe back in New Zealand who maybe have lost track of you for a while, like just fill us in what's happening now. Where are you in the world? Obviously in Melbourne, but what's the day-to-day job entail?
Yeah, look, I've been in Melbourne for over 30 years now, since I left playing when I was a youngster. And yeah, mainly played here in the old NSL for South Melbourne, and played a couple of years in the A-League before I retired and got into coaching. And I've based myself mainly here in Melbourne. I worked in the elite pathway at Melbourne Victory and Western United. But mainly head of football at the moment with my local club, Essendon Royals. So that takes up a lot of my time, with over 50 teams, men and women, boys and girls. So yeah, it's a big job.
Yeah, it certainly is. Football's all encompassing, is it? So we'll get to your coaching piece shortly, but I want us to start back on your playing days. So you mentioned South Melbourne, you mentioned the NSL, which was prior to the A-League forming, and then you played for the Newcastle Jets and then the Wellington Phoenix before coming back to South Melbourne in the NPL football. So the couple of seasons in the NSL, which was again A-League before A-League, you had a certain Ange Postecoglou was the coach. South Melbourne won the league twice, and you played a pretty pivotal part in that as a youngster. So yeah, just rewind if we can back to those days. So what was it like for you in the A-League or the NSL level there as a youngster, and how was it around some of the more senior players? Like, advice now to younger players listening who have cracked the first team at whatever sport they are playing in, and what are some things upon reflection that really helped you embed yourself in that team, and obviously a successful team as well, or some things that you maybe could have done differently had you time again?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I had some fantastic years at South Melbourne in the mid-90s in the NSL, and under Frank Arrock, Ange Postecoglou, Mike Peterson, all played for Australia. So yeah, look, my time there, I loved every minute there. It was a big club. It had very high expectations, and I knew that when I went there. As probably I was 25, around mid-20s. So there were some more experienced players there at the time. But I think just the team in general, just with the level that we were playing at, and the training, yeah, there was no let off at all. And even with Ange, he's a different manager, if I can say that, different coach. I mean, he was sort of just into his coaching career, just starting his coaching career at that time. He worked under Frank, and then he took over the role. And look, he knew he was a straight shooter, black and white, and he got the best out of us. But I think mainly, look, to be honest, the players were at a very good level as well, and they really took the game to another level as well.
What did you find about either about your own game, how far you had to go? Like, what was the value of having those senior players around? Like, were they also open to have you, teach you the ropes, or was it, no, you're going to take my shirt eventually? I'm going to keep you at arm's length.
No, look, I think there was a little bit of both because as a youngster, there's always pressure that you're taking someone else's position. But also, I think even from my experience playing, I think every team that I've played for or gone into, I've had senior players in the team or mentors that I've always looked up to, and those players also have been willing to, give their time to young players and give them advice on where to go and how to play, rather than just yelling and screaming at youngsters. Because the thing is with young players, even from my own experience coaching, is that they make mistakes, more than probably senior players do. And from a senior player to be able to put your arm around a young player and give him some really good advice, don't worry about the mistake. Let's just push on. Let's go again. I just think that comes from just the team environment, and how the coach sets up that landscape. And I felt every sort of team that I played in, whether it was a national team or an NSL team or an A-League team that was successful, had a lot of those players that really helped the young players along.
You mentioned the national team as well. So I think at the time of your retirement, you might have been the record appearance holder for the All Whites. You had some big names around you. Ivan Visilic, who is now the current record holder. We spoke previously around Chris Zoricic, who was kind of the captain. There's some pretty senior players that you had your time there. But longevity in a career. Now, not only club career, but being picked camp after camp, tour after tour for the national team, that's impressive in itself. So, what were some of the things that you can look back on and go, for kind of these reasons, allowed me to be continually selected, apart from form? But was it, you looked after your body, you're a good teammate? Like, what other elements do you think now, help those coaches keep picking you?
Yeah. Look, I just, there was a lot of those things that you mentioned. It was just believing in myself. I really wanted, I think it was my mindset as well. I just want to be the best version of myself, be the best I could be. I knew I had, some things that I needed to work on, but I had some good assets as well at the time. So I probably the strengths, I had a lot of speed, so that helped me a lot within the game at that time. And so look, just and again being just a good person, being respectful to everybody in the game, and it was just I think the things that you commonly hear about hard work, determination, passion, those things come to the forefront of straight away. So with all of those, then with a little bit of luck as well, staying injury free, then you get longevity.
You spoke about like strength. So one of the strengths for you was the physical capacity in terms of your speed. How much did you work on your body? Like, was it something that was a conscious effort, or was it just what we did as part of being a professional footballer? There's no additional kind of focus put towards that, because the way I see the professional game now, been around it for the last sort of 5.5 years, is it's got increasingly more physical focused in terms of working on the body space, coming out of games or leading into games, and all the science has improved, data analysis has improved. Like, yeah, was it
Yeah.
a focus back then, or was it a focus for you based on that was one of your weapons, was your speed?
Yeah. Look, I think sports science and strength and conditioning has come a long way since I played. There wasn't a huge focus on, there was a little part of it, but I mean, I had, probably blessed that I had natural speed as well, so I didn't have to work on that area. There was probably other areas where I had to work on, in terms of the technical side of the game. So those were the things that I was really focusing on at the time. Now, the generation's changed. The game's got quicker. There's probably more games, so you have to look after your body. There's more recovery now, so you have to, and in terms of, eating the proper foods, those sorts of things that gives you a really good edge, I think, in the game now and outside of the game. If you can do that at a good level off the pitch, and I think that even for my own son, I think it's become, as a teenager, it becomes, harder because there's lots of things coming into your life. There's lots of different things happening with, people going to parties and cars and girls and all those sorts of things that come into your, life at that type of age. And it can be difficult, for young players.
If we fast forward out of your playing career now, and because I want to spend more time here around you coaching these youth, high performing youth players, and then also speaking specifically around Luka. So you came back to South Melbourne, where I believe you were player coach. So South Melbourne was in the Victorian NPL, so kind of the A-League had formed, and they were playing in the league below, but they're still a big club, right? Club of the century. I see all over the place. There's some expectations there to win, right? So you coming back was it as a player that morphed into player coach, or was it literally a joint deal right from the beginning? And how did you find that? Because earlier episodes have spoken to Rob Sherman about player coach, Ricky Herbert as well before he got into his sort of international journey, and both sort of said doesn't really work. What was your take on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I was sort of thrust into the job at the time after playing in my mid-30s, and went into coaching. But looking back on it now, it wasn't a good experience. It was a difficult time being a player coach, and in all fairness, like, I had no experience. When I look back now, I had no idea like what I was doing. I had an assistant who was sort of helping me, but in terms of coaching and preparing the team, I wouldn't have done that. I don't believe it to the best of my ability, or for the team itself. I mean, the team did it okay, but like I said, looking back, it wasn't a great experience. And then now, after many years of coaching, and you can look back and reflect on those type of things.
You then move into working in the A-League academy space. So 5 years with Melbourne Victory, working with the youth team as assistant as well as a head coach, and then into Western United. So over this sort of next 8 years, you have evolved your ability as a coach. You're now working with, players who are future professional athletes, future international athletes. And you can probably think of a few players that, are playing in the A-League now or have gone on and represented the various nations. So what was it like, or what is it like working in that space? But I want to find out more around speaking to coaches now. Like, what are some of the traits, the characteristics that you think are critical for coaches to be able to operate effectively in this sort of space?
Yeah, look, it's a very good question. I mean, in these academy spaces, you get to handpick the players, from whether it's trials or from the local area or anything like that. I think the important traits, of a coach is to identify talent first and foremost. And then that's probably what I've learned over the years as a coach, is to pick, I mean, the game is about opinions, but, we'd all pick a different team, and everybody knows that, if somebody else picked an 11. So I think, in my experience, and that's what I believe I'm good at, is identifying talent and really bringing the best out of those players, knowing the player's characteristics, not just as the player, but as the person, and really getting to know that person more on a personal level. And I know we're working with, maybe potentially young players under 18, I'm probably in my last couple of years coaching under 23s, probably a little bit older, but I just think really having that close connection with those players, and the personal, putting your arm around them and really giving them some good feedback and being really honest and upfront with them. I believe that, those are really good traits that bring out the best in boys and girls.
How do you go about doing that? Like, so building a rapport, a connection with an athlete is great advice, and I think that's applicable across every level. You do have to be
Mm.
a little bit careful around, underage and safeguarding and things like that. But how do you apply that personal touch? How's it working for you and your environments?
Yeah, it's just day to day, communication. I think communication is key. Without talking to somebody, people don't know where they stand or how they're going or how they're progressing or if they're not doing well. I think it's a day to day, and when you're seeing those players like 4 or 5 times a week, plus the game, plus video analysis, and you can get really in depth into their game and what they're good at and what areas they need to improve. And also again, just speak it. I know coaches, we don't have a lot of time. We believe, we've got to push on and we've got to get the session done and things like that. We might have 18 players that we've got to, but I think it's really important to build that relationship with the player, and you will see then, the even just on the pitch, their own performance, and then there might be times when you're not getting the performance, and there might be certain reasons why you're not getting the performance, and that player may open up to you, because they're comfortable with actually coming to see you or approaching you on a coach player basis. So yeah, it's not an easy job, but it can be very rewarding.
Is there anything you can share, like maybe around certain technology that you use, or do they have an individual development plan that you touch base with twice a year? Anything that more concrete that you can offer up that you guys are testing or you've used in the past at either of these environments?
Yeah, I think, look, individual development plans, I think, are at most academy teams now. Like catching up with the player, even sometimes the parent as well, at the start of the year, mid-year, and giving them some, and even at the end of the season as well, to give them some individual feedback. Just mainly, on their game, areas of improvement where they need to be better. Even their, even the strength and conditioning side of it as well, the sports science, where there's a lot of data that can be used there as well. So, again, those are the main areas where I think coaches at that level, in terms of their performance, we can give them that type of feedback. But yeah, I think just the day-to-day stuff, I think is more important than just seeing them out on the pitch. The encouragement that you give them, I think, is another key factor as well, in coaching. And especially at youth level as well, mainly not at senior level, but at youth level, I find praise and encouragement beats anything. And I know that we can be tough as coaches, and we can be emotional and get upset with our team and that sort of thing. But I think, especially at youth level, that sort of that care factor about the player is crucial.
Yeah, I love that comment around praise. It's something I speak to the guys that I kind of have some influence over here often. If you see something, don't be afraid to praise in the moment. It could just be a thumbs up. Hey, Vaughan, and that's enough. And then they register that at that moment they've done something that the coach has seen that maybe they didn't think they had, and it's just that positive reinforcement. It doesn't have to be stop the session and go, hey, Vaughan, blah 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 blah. It's a little drops of praise throughout a season, throughout a day, throughout whatever a career has such a long lasting impact. Totally agree.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
I think. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, with praise, it's if it really, with praise and encouragement and positivity, it it actually you'll find that the player, I believe most players with any praise that will just lift them again, and just their own performance. And if you want more out of them, they're going to give you more. Not maybe not that session, or you might be in the game, or it could be just, because really at the end of the day, you as the coach are a reflection, on your team as well. The way that you behave and the way that you come across to your team is really a reflection on your team. So the behaviours of your team, will hopefully, reward you as well with the performances.
Yeah, there's a great quote. I can't remember who it said, but the spirit of the team is in the face of the coach, which basically
Yeah.
saying is how the coach is will be disseminated across his or her athletes. You mentioned just a little bit before about the plans and then maybe involving the parents as part of this process. So just kind of keen to just circle back to that for a second. So how much, speaking now as a coach to coaches, how much is that parent engagement piece underutilized, overutilized? Is it something that should be done carefully? Like, just take that question as you wish, but how much, and is it at different stages? Is it maybe different in your opinion around when and how we involve the parent?
Yeah. I think it's important to involve the parent to a certain degree. But I believe, I've always thought as a coach that I'm a teacher. So when I'm teaching, so it's like going to school. So, like anything, you drop your kid off at school and you let the teacher teach maths, and there's not too much interaction or interference in doing my job. Apart from a school report or a parent-teacher interview, and I think even these days, even the parents, get too involved, to be honest, and from my experience, even with my own son, I never really, I love watching him play, but I never got involved with any of the coaching or any of that. I just stayed away. I kept to myself. I just watched him play on the weekend and just enjoyed the moment, Whereas, yes, parents are important because I understand, they have to take them to and from training and drive them there and that sort of thing. But I really believe if you let the coach do his job to the best of his ability, and you do your due diligence, and you go to the right environment where you think your son or daughter is best going to develop, then let them be, let them express themselves, let them be themselves, and yeah, they will find their level, and they'll find their own pathway, and that's you've just got to be there to support them and love them, and you'll see the player and even the person, become a real man or a woman. So yeah, that's how I really see the parent engagement is to yes, be there. We will give you the feedback that is necessary, but again, keep it positive in and around the household, and just really be there as a parent.
Yeah, I love the advice. If you continue this line of thinking, right, and speaking straight down the barrel to parents with your coach hat on, or even the head of the club, right, the development is looking after a variety of different things, you probably have a lot of parental interactions. What are some things that you would advocate for or encourage parents to be, other than things you just spoke about, doing more of? So can they ask the coach questions? Should they be asking the club TD questions around plans or pathway or progression? Yeah, and maybe what are the things that as a coach or a club TD, what are the red flags that maybe parents aren't even aware of? You're always going to get that 5% of parents that are off on their own tangent, and that's the way of the world. But if you can help parents become more aware of something that they may be doing unconsciously, that they can easily stop or tweak, which would help not only the trajectory of their son or daughter's athletic journey, but also their whole presence around that environment. What other kind of key advice could you give to do more of or to do less of?
Yeah. Look, I don't mind, I think it's more important for the player to actually, if things are not going well or, um, you know, you, there could be some really important questions you can ask as a player to, this is at youth level as well, because you are trying to build the player to be a young person, a young man, a young woman. So, things, how do what do I need to do better to get in the team? What things that, do I need to be better at? Where are the areas where I need to improve? And by all means, as a parent as well, look, if you feel that, you're not getting the initial feedback or anything from, I'm always, even as the head of football at Essendon Royals or my local club, my door is always open. Yes, I have parents, approaching me for little certain things about their child, and I'm happy to give that feedback. But I will give you pretty much honest feedback as well, because uh, I think it's honesty is the best way to be on, and to be open with about your son or daughter, and then also as parents, I also think like I said to you before, that I touched on, is that, like, if you drop your son off at training, what I see a lot these days is that parents drop their son off or their daughter and they hang around and they watch their son and daughter, and they're standing right on the fence and they're looking over, and it just adds, I feel, it just adds more pressure to the player. And whether you see the son, you'll look over and you look at mum, or look at dad or something like that, or I like I said at the start, I believe, in any sport, if you take your son and daughter, let them, why can't you drop them off, and just, whether you're walking around the outside, or you're just not oblivious to training, but you can always keep an eye on it. But I just think, let the kids be themselves, let the kids express themselves, and be themselves. That's the time that they, they're obviously there for a reason. They love the game, I feel like these days with the parents, the pressure, on the kids, not necessarily, could even be peer pressure from other kids as well. But I still think, that could be a big factor.
It's an interesting point. I think, parents, if you're listening and you go, am I sticking around watching? Am I watching for my benefit or my son or daughter's benefit? And if it's for my benefit because I'm curious, or want to see or I just want to feel like I'm contributing, maybe have that conversation and go, do you want me to be watching? Does it add more pressure? Because that's a unique or an individualized response, right? Some parents or some kids may thrive because dad's watching, or maybe granddad comes down and watch. He doesn't get to come and watch all the time. So if he's there, then yeah, I want him to watch. Or it could be actually dad or mum, I'd rather you not watch this because it's, my space, or I'll talk to you about it in the car. But I think, the words you used before, communication is the key. I love that. That was a note put on my desk day one of my first job in football from my boss, Dave Sloss, a little sticky pad saying communication is the key, left it there. And that stuck with me. But you said that 100%. The interactions between coach and parent, coach and player, parent and club, coach and club is a two-way street. It's about giving that informational feedback, also listening and receiving it, and then being able to distill it. So communication is the key, regardless of whatever that context is. I just want to bring in one more coaching scenario. So you spend a fair bit of time working within schools as well. So how is that balancing act between athletes who get pulled from this direction to play for club and maybe an academy or private academy, and their school, where both feel that their environment's the more superior, and the kid or the athlete's in the middle of that, right? So how do you manage that as somebody or is a coach of a school team, but then equally so school club coach or club TD? What are some good strategies or some things that you've adapted to make this work for the athlete?
Yeah, I think, that's a good question again. and I've been in that space for many years, and also had academy players playing at my school and those sort of things, and been on scholarships and that kind of stuff. So, and there's been times where the clubs get upset and all that sort of thing. But I think it gets back to, again, being honest, communicate right from the start. The scenarios where the player's at. And also, like I said, building that and having a plan set out right from the start about the season ahead. Where we see him. And look, it's for me. I mean, I have an understanding of an academy player, so I understand the workloads. Managing those loads. So that's probably one of the biggest things. And then also playing for your school, because if you ask any boy or girl who plays for their school, even my own son, he said he loved playing for his school because it was because he was playing with his mates, and it was like playing in the schoolyard, and there was no pressure, to perform and they had fun and they had a laugh on the bus and all those sort of things. They want to be a kid sort of thing. Whereas, in the academy space, if you say the academy or, people think, there's high expectations, there's a lot of pressure, there's players, competing against, each other. So that's, so there's that really elite side of it as well. So, yes, I understand. And I just think, it's really important that, you look up, first and foremost, I think you've got to look after the player. That's the most important thing. The player is the most important. Now, the school, yes, schooling is also important, but you've got to find the right balance as well. I think like as you would know, we all work in the we've worked in the academy space and that, and you're lucky enough if one or two players become A-League players or are lucky enough to get professional contracts. So, in all honesty, I think, one of my mentors when I was a young coach, and you probably know him, Darren Davies, who I look up to very highly, always, said to the kids, education, school is number one, and I'll never forget that. And, and so the kids, focused on their schoolwork, but at the same time, when they came to train, they knew it was, time to train and get your head down and work hard. So I think it's just really, to answer that, is to really just to find the balance, have some common sense as both parties try to work together. And, I'm sure that, we can, you can come to a fine line, a balance.
It's tricky, right? Like for me, I always come back to it's the athlete's journey, it's their career at the end of the day. So they have to be a big part of that decision. And if they want to prioritize playing for school on this particular week for the reasons that they give you, then we have to respect that. But what the athlete also needs to be conscious of is sometimes you can't have it all. You can't do this and this and this and this because it's not actually the best thing for your long-term development, either from a physical perspective, a loading, that sort of stuff, or literally if we have a certain, way of doing things and you can't meet, say, minimum expectations from that environment, then some things have to give. So it can't just be, I'm going to play school. And I think it also can't be, you can't play for school. Again, that come back to the communication and the relationship and putting the athlete, and sometimes the parent needs, this is maybe where the parent can have a bit more of a firmer hand to ensure that both sides or all three sides can kind of come to an agreement based on what's best thing for the athlete's long-term success in the game, not just the here and now. I think that patience game, or that an inability to kind of go, I'm not the only person involved in this environment, so I think I have to listen and how do we find a solution, I think is really important. And sometimes as the academy coach, and this was the case when I was in there, I'm the one that's going to take a back step. Like I'm going to have maybe the athlete comes to training, but I won't include him in my session because he's played for school 2 hours before, but he still wants to be at session. I'm not going to say you can't turn up, but I'm going to be the one that kind of is impacted his environment because he or she can't train because of that's not the best thing for that athlete long term. So yeah, it's an interesting piece, but I think both of us would agree that that collaboration, that open communication, the forward planning, where this might be really important for the athlete, but it's doesn't really make sense because they're going to win 18-0, whereas 2 weeks down the track it might be a trip to interstate and it's a really important game. Then maybe go and prioritize that, and then I'm going to concede over here. So yeah, just having a considerations, I think, is the right way to approach that. I want to bring Luka into the conversation now and spend a bit of time on this. So I can only imagine, as an athlete, he's asked you for advice. You're playing the same sport, different positions, but who else? How lucky to have a dad who's gone through and experienced this and had a long career and a successful career. Am I correct in thinking he's coming to you for advice, or is he not wanting to hear what dad has to say about becoming a professional footballer?
No, he does come to me for advice. Not all the time. Look, I think he's been, part of our, my upbringing, or his upbringing, was that he was in and around me since 5 years of age. So I coached him at a young age. He was always in the changing room. He always, so that was part of his life. So that's in his DNA, being around coaches, being around players, being in that changing room, and that whole sort of feeling that you get inside. But yeah, look, there comes a time and a place as well that you have to let go as well. I think I coached them for a couple of years, and I think it's important. It's important that not just my son, but other people. You hear different voices, different perspectives on game style and all those sorts of things. It's just a way of learning, and he's done that himself. And like I said, he's a really sort of intelligent sort of type of player as well, in terms of the way he analyzes the game as well. I can just see him now. One day I'm pretty sure, and he's even asked me now about being a coach or doing his badges. So he's really entrenched in the game itself. Has a really good understanding, but I think that's partly due just to he was lucky enough to be in and around the game, 6 days a week. So, but I think all players they have their own journey and their own pathway, and hopefully later on down the track, we can see him out at playing at a high level.
So just for context, so he's at Western United, so an A-League club. He's on a scholarship deal, and he's training with the first team, right? So he's the prime athlete candidate for this sort of podcast, that pre-performance player or athlete who's close to there. Are you finding yourself now speaking to him as Vaughan the ex-athlete, Vaughan the coach, or Vaughan dad? Like, do you put on three different hats at three different times, or are you finding there's one perspective that kind of trumps how your interaction is with Luka?
Yeah. Look, as a coach, I don't really talk to him too much about the coaching side of it. I mean, I think that's what his coaches are there for, and they do a fantastic job in doing that. Yes, we talk about the game and things like that. I think more so as a father now, because being in that space, it's very competitive. You're not just given the shirt, to play, and you get out on the pitch. You might not be in the squad, or you haven't played, or you only played 10 minutes. It's becomes the more mental side of it as well, and staying motivated, and going to training every day. So I think me as a father, that's more of the advice that I'm giving him at the moment, is to just hang in there, be patient, wait for your opportunity, those sorts of things. But he's young, and he's got a lot. He's only 18, and so he's got a long way to go in his career if he chooses to do that. But yeah, I think it's just the start, really, to be honest.
if we rewound maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, so it's still quite recent, right? But he's not quite at the level he's at now. Would it still be the same, or would there be more kind of advice you're trying to impart from, again, the athlete or coach perspective? Because he's still got so much more to learn, and that, yeah, or is it still more that supportive, caring dad figure, because
Yeah,
you weren't his coach?
no, yeah. Look, a couple of years ago, I would say that maybe I had more of the coaching hat on, and because you see a lot of players go through the system, and you see certain behaviours of certain players and what they do well and what they don't do well, and just giving him that sort of feedback. Speaking to him, as giving him advice on if you want to be a professional player, these these are the areas that you need to be better at. This is how you need to train. This is how you need to look after yourself. So yeah, in terms of a couple of years back, definitely the coach's hat was on, but it wasn't like every day and those sorts of things. It's just gentle reminders of just to keep him on his toes, sort of thing, about the just keeping that mindset and knowing that to be a professional athlete, you really need to do certain things to reach that level.
What are some of the challenges that either you face or you feel, it's difficult to speak on behalf of somebody else, but maybe that you feel Luka's facing around this journey that you guys are both going on together?
Yeah, yeah. The challenges. Look, I think now he's sort of again. He's taken his own pathway himself. Um, and we obviously speak about the game a lot as well, and we get on well together as a father and son, and in terms of the football side of it, there's no pressure from me or for him to perform or whatever. I honestly think that I've given him the tools and coached him at a young age and given him the best advice I could possibly give him. But then at now that he's a teenager, that he really needs to grasp the game himself now and go to that next level. And you need to grow as a young man. And sometimes, you're going to be on your own, sort of thing, and especially at that really elite level, at top end level, that A-League level, that it's really competitive. And no one's going to give up their spot or give their shirt away. You have to earn it. You have to get the respect of your fellow players. So again, being a professional football player is it's not easy.
Outside of let's say the daily training environments that he found himself in at first, at club level, then Melbourne Victory, then and now Western United. Was there anything else that, as a family unit, you guys were adding into his weekly plan? Now, was he playing for school as well every week, or was it periodically? Was he doing additional private providers? Was he working on, a strength plan outside of what was provided in those environments? Like, I'm just trying to tap into your wisdom around what you've seen work, and maybe it's not even for Luka, but the athletes working under your care at Essendon Royals. What are some other add-ons that maybe parents and athletes should be considering that is going to help along their journey to performance levels?
Yeah, look, I think again, I mean, like anything in any sport, the more hours you put in, the best you're going to get, out of it as well. So the more touches with the ball, I believe, because I've been overseas and I've seen some of the players overseas, and they're very technically advanced, maybe a little bit more advanced than some of the players in Australia and New Zealand. So I'm big on the technical side of the game, so learning that part of it. So I think the more times you're out touching that ball, and for me, ball mastery is one of the key areas that young players need to work on. And I obviously work with my own son in my own time with him. Went to things like Curver, say, I don't know if you would have heard of that. Those sorts of things. Introduced him to those things. So there was no real it was more about ball mastery than anything else. Yeah, look, yes, everybody, we go to a personal trainer or have those sorts of things, but I think at youth level, it's not hugely important. Yes, you can do, like, in terms of if you work, I just think in the gym, maybe, power and strength and those sort of things with own body weights, that, you don't have to be pushing big weights and all that sort of thing, I don't think, at a young age. Um, me, for me, it's more about being out on the pitch and, getting that, having that game sense, game environment, touching the ball all the time, conditioning games and all that sort of thing, is one of the most important things. But yeah, that's and yeah, like you said, I think, yeah, the more time, the more you put in, the more hours. Definitely, you're going to get something out of it. But I think sometimes as well, it's important not also to go overboard and overload as well. I think it's also important, and I mean, I had an experience as well as a player. I played another sport as well, and I didn't play soccer, 24/7 or all the time. I actually played another sport and was, quite good at another sport as well. So I just think it's, you've got to give them a bit of time and space as well, and let them do, not be solely focused on one thing, because I think sometimes, they call things like burnout or whatever, or they've had enough at a certain age. So, like I said to you, even from the start, I think, my philosophy is for young children to love the game, get them to love it and want to come back and be, as the coach or the leader of the session, make it enjoyable for them to want to come back. And then also, young people need to live their lives as well, so they need, their time and space as well. So, and then, yeah, you'll see, I think, as a coach, when, the players and the feedback that you're getting from your players, or the engagement that you're getting from them, you'll know that they're really loving what they're doing, and if you can push them a little bit more.
It's like anything, right? If you want to become a master of anything, you need to put in the time and do the quote unquote the reps. But that repetition of the same thing over and over, there's a loss of love, i.e. the burnout, mental burnout. There's the physical potentially damage, the physical burnout through the same motor patterns and landing and jumping, especially at that youth age, right? But having that little diversity. So you mentioned curver. In the past, we've spoken about futsal. So whilst it's not football, it's futsal, it's different. It's still it's very transferable to getting those reps towards mastery. It's not the exact same thing, but it's similar enough. And you spoke about playing a different sport. Again, something that's going to develop the athlete, the love for sport, the social interaction with a secondary group. So it's not always the same sports, not always the same movement patterns, it's not always the same people. I think that kind of, it's a perfect storm to help long-term longevity in whatever athletic career people choose. Hey Vaughan, really appreciate your insights to date. Let's finish this conversation with our rapid fire questions if you're ready for that.
Yeah, sure.
Set me and the audience a question for the week.
Yeah. Really, really, for me, I just really want people to think about, them as coaches, and how do you get the best out of your players. And like I said to you from the outset, is can you reflect on, what are the best things that you use to get the best out of your players, and use that as, like I said, for me, mine was giving players a lot of praise and encouragement, having a lot of interaction with the players, So yeah, I think that might be something for coaches to go away and have a little think about. Can that be something that can help them along the way?
Yeah, nice. Outline one idea or concept that you are testing out or have implemented in your world that we can potentially try in ours.
Yeah. Look, the best thing that I think, especially in my training sessions, is small-sided games. That's one thing that I've done a lot of, and not always doing it for the entire session or anything like that, but the small-sided games. Kids love games, whether it's from age 7 or 15. You can't go wrong with small-sided games.
Absolutely. That's what ultimate the whole thing is a game at the end of the day. So the more modified games we can have, not only is it a great tool for learning, right? But it's what we're there to do as well. So love that. A recommendation of a book, movie, TV series, or podcast for either athletes, parents, or coaches.
Yeah, I'm going back to my homeland of New Zealand, and there was a book called The Legacy, James Kerr, about the All Blacks. And yeah, look, if you get a chance to read it, if you're even a coach at junior level or grassroots level, just something really, yeah, just really stuck with me, that book. And I read it a couple of times, and yeah, just that was very, very great insight.
Yeah, great book. Also read it. I spoke to Ian Foster a number of years ago when I was working with his daughter, and he kind of said, "Look, the guy came in, didn't outline the fact he was writing a book, and it kind of appeared out of nowhere, and the All Blacks were less than pleased about it. So yeah, it really pulls back the curtain. He spent a year in, I think, with the All Blacks and produced this fantastic book. I love it. So yeah, if you haven't seen it or come across it, Legacy is well worth the read. Um, if you had a magic wand and you waved it and changed one thing about either being a sporting parent or the journey towards high performance as an athlete or coach, what would you change?
Um, yeah, I look, well, the first in the game itself, in the game, I'd get rid of VAR. I don't think that at all. Um, but in terms of the game itself, look, I think the game's still evolving. I wouldn't change much, to be honest. I love the way the game is at the moment. Um, the game's getting quicker and faster, and still, yeah, really exciting.
But it's not broken. Don't fix it,
No,
right? Don't mess around
that's
with it at
right.
least. Hey, what's one piece of advice that you were given that you can share with us?
Look, I think the biggest thing for me is respect. When I was growing up, not as my parents, and also then as mentors as I grew up, was respect each other, respect one another, respect everybody in the game, because you may not agree with some things along the way, but being well, having manners and being having that ultimate respect will not only again for longevity, in the game as well, and be a well respected person.
Yeah, let's try and be a good bugger, right?
Yeah, that's it.
What's the thing that you are striving for today?
Look, I think striving for today for myself is just to be the best version of myself. I really just want to be the best at what I do, the best that I can be. Yeah, and just giving back to have everything that I've learned along my journey is giving back to people as well, and giving back now. I'm obviously getting a little bit older, and I am focusing now more on giving back to young coaches, and hopefully giving them some really good advice about how to coach and how to coach at a good level. So I think just being the best version of yourself, and that will ultimately you know give back to people as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And this last hour is sort of testament to that, right? It's not something you had to do, and it's something you wanted to be a part of. And it's been some fantastic advice there for people to take out of it. So for that, we thank you. And to finish us off, leave us with a quote for the week.
Yeah, the quote is for me really is just believe in yourself. It's pretty simple, really, and that goes for any young person listening, or any coach, any parent. Just believe in yourself. You will ultimately, get to the level where you need to be at, and go on your journey. And more importantly, speaking to players, like I said, if you don't believe in yourself, you've really got to back yourself and know that you're going to reach a good level.
Lovely advice. Hey, Vaughan, as a former athlete who had a fantastic professional and international career, somebody who's still operating as a coach, working with these athletes on their journey, imparting your wisdom and advice, and then also kind of letting us in on how things are for you as a sporting parent, and maybe some perspective that's, maybe it's not my journey. My son has got good coaches doing their thing. I'm going to let them do their space. And I think that's really important advice as well, where, it's no longer your journey, but you're there always to support if Luka needs advice or questions, or sometimes you see a gap appear, then maybe you can skillfully impart some wisdom as well. So, hey, somebody who's triple threat in our books. Heaps to take out of today's conversation. Really appreciate your time, and good to see you. You're still looking pretty fit, mate. You probably beat me over 50 meters as well.
No, no, don't, no, not inside, mate. The body's breaking down now.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers.